Good morning. We're seeing a few folks trickle into this stream here. Thank you all for taking time out of your day to join us. I'm Jesse, the Bison, host of today's event, the Morning Leak. It's an event designed to give you a creative boost of inspiration from fellow creatives. And AIGA Jacksonville is a nonprofit organization working towards uniting and inspiring the creative community. Here we go. And we'll get started here in just a sec. All right. How are we doing in the chat? Hey, RadX Magazine, Anna, Joshua. All right, great. All right, so give me just 1 second here. We're having a little bit of audio, just confirming we can hear everything. All right, Frank, okay. He says he can hear me now. Great. Awesome. Okay, and be sure to stay through for some announcements towards the end. And if you have questions or comments, please drop into the chat. But we're excited today to have two really awesome guests joining us. We have Frank Adamo, who has founded a new app, and he is a UX designer, and he's going to share his creative journey on that today. And we also have Nicole Radacz from RadX Magazine, Chief Creative Director. And she'll be talking about the journey with her publication and everything she's been able to achieve with her group there. Without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Frank. So Frank is, again, a founder of a new application and UX designer. And let me go ahead and get... All right, should be good to go.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
All right, yep, we can hear you. Yep, coming in nice and clear. All right,
Awesome.
well, Frank, welcome to the Morning Leak, and go ahead and kick it off here and give us a little introduction and go right into your presentation.
Yeah, so today I wanted to share with everyone a little bit about my design process and the overall process of the creation of the company and app that I founded earlier last year called Loop You In. And basically drawing a lot of parallels to my experience with starting this business and how it kind of relates to a lot of similar things that we as designers do when we participate in design thinking. So what is Loop You In? Loop You In is essentially a platform for providing tools to designers to connect more authentically with their user base. So we like to think of ourselves as kind of like the CRM for design, and CRM stands for customer relationship management. And usually those are softwares that sales and marketing teams use in order to turn a prospective customer into an actual customer. And although we're not really doing the same thing with our software, we want to take the same methodologies of instead of turning a prospect into a customer by turning a user into a contributor to user research. And so we kind of use this methodology of attracting the user using incentives mostly, and then engaging with the user. So engaging in communication, building a meaningful relationship, and then ultimately recruiting them in order to participate in user research. So along my journey of creating this, of creating Loop You In, one of the biggest takeaways in my experience is that discovering that really a good business development process is essentially just design thinking process. The only difference is that none of the small business consultants that you might work with starting a business are ever going to refer to it that way. So what is design thinking? Design thinking is essentially a process of understanding your end users, identifying their needs and pain points, defining a problem or challenge from those pain points, and creating ideas on how to solve them. And then essentially creating a prototype for that, and then going back to those end users in order to validate. And then iterating this process over and over again so that your design, product, or service can basically reach a more optimal version over time. If you're a designer, you probably participate in this process, and your process already probably mimics a lot of parts of the design thinking process. So where do we start? Well, we start by empathizing with our users and trying to understand who they are and what they feel. This process is exactly the same for developing or defining your user personas, but also your customer segments. I found that in the business development process that these are, the exact same process, with the main difference of being sometimes your customers may not always be your end users, and your buyer personas may not always be the people who are the consumers of your product. So you might have to have developed two separate personas. And in the case of like a sales and marketing process, that messaging might differ for each of those types of consumers or buyers. So you start by kind of at a general level defining who your users and customers are going to be. And then you proceed with essentially gathering data from them. And a great way to gather data is by conducting interviews. They allow you to have an open conversation and extract more information than, let's say, a traditional survey or even like secondhand information that you might get from a study online or whatnot. You can then use this kind of data to build essentially an empathy map, which I'll get to in a second. But you can use a lot of this aspirational and attitudinal data to really map exactly what the what pain points and goals of your customers or users are experiencing. And warning, if you ever do this process in person and are writing down notes, make sure that you keep those notes out of reach of your dog who might tear them up. Here are some interview notes that I had taken that my dog completely shredded the notebook that I had. And it was funny because this was the day after I took those notes. So make sure you have like a digital backup copy of these. So essentially, you want to kind of with these interviews, you want to gather this kind of data, and this is what I was referring to as an empathy map. You want to really understand how your users feel, what they usually see in their traditional process, what they hear, what they say and do, and usually those things are different. And then understanding the biggest points are using those to understand what their pain points are and what they hope to gain or hope to achieve. So with LoopUN, we were able to take that interview data and create our user personas and our customers' personas, and really kind of use all of that data that we use from the empathy map to kind of map that to a persona and really allow us to like visualize who our user and customers are along the process of designing. and like I had mentioned before, the process for defining your users and defining your customers is the exact same. You can use what we know from these processes to define both. But like I had mentioned before, your user isn't always necessarily your buyer. So you might have to split that process into two different segments. And a lot of times this is the case, especially in a B2B market. So really what we found from our interviews with designers is that a lot of designers were having trouble struggling to conduct user research, usually because of lack of buy-in from their organizations or lack of the right resources or processes to have direct access to their user base or user data. And like I had mentioned before in the design thinking process, this is essential. This kind of data is essential to really understanding your users. And here's kind of like a statistic that 70% of teams do zero research, despite the fact that 8 out of 10 acknowledge that research is critical, and it's often easier to do nothing. Research can often take weeks to facilitate, often leaving design teams learning too little too late. So this kind of brings us to the ideate portion of the design thinking process. So what I was able to do with that information from our personas was able to kind of like fully map out the user's journey throughout their process of trying to conduct user research. And what I did here was identified opportunities that we could potentially improve, which led to a lot of ideas, which will eventually get narrowed down into a minimal viable product later on. But what I was really trying to focus on was finding ways to maximize and leverage our customers' user base, and focus on tools that will help them more efficiently connect with them. And that's really our differentiator from some of our competitors in our space, is our focus on our customers, facilitating our customers' user relationships opposed to relying on third-party paid participants, which is pretty consistent with a lot of what designers are doing in their traditional projects today. And then I obviously took the opportunity to photograph my dog in front of it. You can't miss opportunities like that. So this kind of takes me into really taking those pains and gains and turning those into value propositions for your company. So you can take that user journey and identify those opportunities and understand what pains they're experiencing and what gains they want to achieve, and really kind of flip those and provide solutions for those that then you can turn into value propositions that are awesome for your marketing and sales, and being able to communicate to your customer what you have to offer. So at LoopUN, we offer contextual insight, meaningful user relationships, diverse insight at scale, research first design, and lean agility. And then here's kind of the fun portion of the presentation. So like I had mentioned before, really taking kind of like all those features and ideas that we got out of the user journey and really narrowing them down to a couple of key features. And really the lens that I used for this was going back again to those pains and gains that our users need, really trying to narrow down, what's going to relieve some of these pains, and what's going to give our users the most gains. So my initial idea for this product was to create just a way for our customers to. It was essentially a survey platform. So being able to serve these surveys up to their users directly, and then getting information back that will go into a contact profile. And then you can kind of see some of these design mockups for managing those surveys. But I really kind of went back to the drawing board on this based on some of the validation that I did with some of our potential users, and really went back to the drawing board and tried to focus more on this idea of converting a user from just a traditional user to a contributor, and really adding features along the way that will help our customers do that. So you can kind of see the dotted outline ones are future enhancements, and then the dark gray ones are things that we want in our MVP. And this kind of aligns along with that conversion. And then the last part is kind of like an analyze feature, which is, once you have this data from your users, how can we convert that into meaningful data? So that kind of led us to a more high fidelity prototype and closer to our final version. This is kind of this interview interface that we created. So we kind of we pivoted from providing a survey tool to providing more of an interview tool where you can build outlines to conduct interviews, you can see to the left-hand side, like add participants, which you can then send out via email or in-person interview. And then this is the iteration of the contact profile. The responses from the interview portion are displayed here. And then there's a kind of like a notes for extra external information. And then we have basically a demographic and contact field information. So you can contextualize a little bit more information based on the responses that your participants are giving. And then this is kind of a little bit of that analyze portion. So taking the information and the qualitative data that you are basically capturing from your users, and being able to organize that in basically a very flexible, different way. So in this example, we kind of have data aligned in a UX process, but you could formulate this into different kind of columns and stuff like that. So the last part I want to kind of go over is just like testing and validating. So like I had mentioned before, we're constantly trying to validate our ideas with our customers, and this is probably one of the most important parts of the design thinking process. And that kind of caused us to, pivot our functionality. And a lot of our app looks a lot different than kind of like what I'm presenting today, even now. So we were able to kind of go back to that initial group that we had targeted in the beginning, and kind of get feedback on some of these design prototypes, and really understand what we need to change and how we can pivot our product. And then of course, you want to do usability testing as well. The two things I kind of measure are like usability and then also usefulness. So you want to kind of get that qualitative aspirational data back from your target audience, but also get the more quantitative measurements on, is your product actually usable? And then I wanted to show a little bit of our latest iteration, because like I mentioned, it's a little different than what I'm presenting now, but I think we're running up on time. So I think we can just go to questions.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Frank. We did have a question in the chat. So how long was the process to create this application so far?
So I had the original idea back in late 2018, but I really didn't start the process of creating it until late 2019 and early 2020. in 2019, I really kind of focused on some of the design and marketing pieces. And then really in the beginning of 2020, I started the development myself. And then that lasted about November last year. And now we have myself and two other developers working on this product. So, and we just basically finished our MVP product last week. So,
Excellent. What was it like to incorporate the problem solving, that problem solving business hat in your process? Did you feel that the UX principles really helped you understand the customer's journey and approach it from a pain and gain and business perspective as well?
yeah, I definitely think so. That was kind of like the essentially the main idea of this presentation was a lot of the parallels I was discovering when going through this business development process of how that related to the design thinking process. And I really, so I'm not, I don't come from a business background. So I really leverage a lot of help from small business consultants from the SBDC and stuff like that to really help me along with some of like the business planning and business development part. And it kind of like, so I wasn't really aware of that process before, but like learning that process from them and walking through all of this kind of, obviously shed light on how similar it is, and was definitely able to leverage a lot of the skills that I already had with developing the business.
Very nice. How would you encourage someone else that is interested in developing or pursuing their own problem solving solution and user experience? What would be a great first step for them to begin that journey?
Is the question more about the problem solving part of it?
I would say more getting into developing an actual product
Oh yes, okay.
applying yourself from a creative sense and really taking it to fruition to an actual product. Like, what would be a
Yeah.
great starting point for that, in your opinion?
Yeah. So I think like just like think about some of the your own skills that you can leverage. In the beginning of this process, I really a big part of creating a startup company is trying to be very lean. So, trying to tackle what things you can and leveraging your skills to do that. So, I come from a graphic design background. So, a lot of the branding and design and website design stuff I did on my own. And I really just kind of like tried to facilitate all of the things that I knew I was capable of doing and trying to, start that myself. So I really think it like really ties into the skills that you have and trying to leverage those to start. And then if you are missing some skills, either try to learn more skills on your own, or maybe potentially find some key team members or co-founders that can kind of fill those gaps. Like for me, a big learning experience for me is like I have a little bit of the development experience, but I'm not a very technical savvy or at least from a software development perspective. So developing this product, it was like kind of a big learning curve for me, and it took me a while to kind of pick up on a lot of the things. But now I'm kind of more versed in it, so it's been really helpful. But on the business side and mainly like a lot of the sales side, I don't have any experience in, and I'm still struggling with developing that sales process and stuff like that, to the point where I'm trying to bring in more people to kind of help me along with that stuff. So don't be afraid to reach out to other people for help as well.
That's great advice. I loved hearing how you were able to collaborate with other people, other developers, and get that help that you needed, and really explored those resources that you can get your hands on. We did have one last question before we'll bring Nicole on, and it's from Chad in the chat. Did you have any challenges developing the app and juggling your day job?
Yeah, very much. It's it's a lot of late nights. I still actually do work on my day job. Usually I'm working on this like right after I get off work, and then usually up until um, the early morning, usually a lot of 2 a.m. Sessions and stuff like that. So yeah, it's definitely is difficult, and I would strongly urge, if you were starting a business, if you have the opportunity to pursue it alone, definitely do that, because it's going to save you just a lot of uh, it's obviously going to be more beneficial to you. But if you obviously aren't in the position to do that, then it definitely is definitely a struggle. Um, yeah, that's pretty much what I have to say about that. It's a lot of
Gotcha.
late nights.
Yeah, no, I definitely admire your dedication, and I agree. It's something you have to really push forward and work on a little bit each day, especially if you're trying to take, your creative ventures off the ground. So yeah,
Yeah.
definitely admire you for that, and appreciate you jumping onto the call. We are going to go ahead and transition over to bring Nicole onto the show. Definitely look up Frank on loopyouin.com. Frank, thank you so much for being on the Morning Leak. You can find Frank at frankadamo.com, or excuse me, Frank Adamo Design on Instagram. And yeah, any last words?
No, I really appreciate this opportunity to share my work. And if anyone has any questions on anything related to design, or maybe the business development process, feel free to reach out to me. I'm definitely open to anybody. So.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Frank. And with that, we'll go ahead and start our intermission to bring Nicole onto the call. And give us just one moment, folks, and we'll be right back. All right, welcome back. We have with us today Nicole Radacz, Chief Creative Director at RadX Magazine. Thank you, Nicole, for jumping on. She's going to talk about her journey and launching the publication and all the cool stuff that they've done over the past year. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce Nicole. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Yeah. So RadX Magazine is a local publication focused all about the arts, local artists. Our mission is to highlight powerful artists of all forms who aren't regularly published or covered. We like to celebrate every and all mediums, ranging from videography to painting to musicians, photography, the whole nine. We recognize the inequality that exists in the arts, and we want to focus on those intersectional voices and talent. Um, so RadX Magazine is a platform for local creatives by local creatives. Our goal is to showcase people's work, their stories. We want to encourage people to network with each other as well. We want to also connect for artists to connect with a larger audience as well. That's one thing that's been really important. Is a lot of struggles that I've heard is people, they don't have the opportunity to get their work out there in a publication sort of way. Excuse me, sort of way. It's also a platform for the community as well. So people, who may not necessarily be artists, but they want to support local artists, a way for them to do that and to connect, to engage, and also to find inspiration and direction. I mean, it's if you're not someone who has the abilities, who necessarily can create, or don't necessarily physically can create but really admire art, this is a really great publication as well to watch, and to get inspired as well. So behind the magazine. So a little bit about me. My name is Nicole Radacz. I am the founder and chief creative director. I was born in Canada, but raised in Jacksonville. My family origin is actually from Poland, which is kind of a cool little fun fact. Currently, my day job is I'm a UX UI designer at Florida Blue. So I've been a designer for over 4 years now. I graduated from Florida State College at Jacksonville with my associate in science, in digital media and multimedia technology. Um, so from there, after that, I graduated December 2016, and I just wanted to get out into the work field, and started working as a designer. Some of my hobbies kind of include dance fitness, painting, traveling before COVID, cooking, hanging out with my bunnies, art museums, photography, skills. So I've had a passion for art and design from the very from as early on as I can remember. I've always either wanted to create something. I used to create these little books for my dad. I would just write a little story, just whatever I could. Art was always my favorite class from elementary school. It was always, I just always have had this admiration, for creating. So really, I feel like in middle school, it kind of started to form where, I think it was like eighth grade, I got my first camera. Like, I really loved photography. It was something that was, I would do all of the crazy filters, all of the photo bucket, just going crazy. Looking back on it, it looks atrocious. But, in the moment, it was just something fun to do, a way to express myself. In high school, I kind of, was sharpening my photography skills and started exploring other mediums. I started to do some painting. I was also a dancer, um, graphic design, drawing. I was always, that kid in class that would sketch when the teacher was talking, not really paying attention. So I've always just had a really like a true passion and love for all things creating and art. Um, so, of course, I do not do this magazine by myself. I have a very loyal and hardworking team. Cody Quattlebaum, he's the editor in chief of the magazine. We actually go back from high school, which is crazy. And so he works on all of the copy for the magazine, all of the articles, anything written. That is all on him. I am definitely more of the visual side of things. We also have some really great writers as well. We just got some interns in January for this spring semester, which is really exciting. So we brought on some graphic design interns. Of course, I can't forget about our great photographer Sensei, and also Datavius, who actually was the art director behind our last cover. So yeah, really great team, phenomenal to work with, always on time, always working the hardest, a little behind the scenes. So here's some behind the scenes, just from our photo shoots and interviews we've had from local creatives. So a little bit kind of about the process, the journey, so to speak. So at the beginning, I had this idea back in December of 2018. The initial concept was actually more towards a digital magazine, funny enough. I just was like, I had so many friends that were so talented, but they just didn't, have the right amount of following on Instagram, or, they didn't hang out with a certain group of people. So it just felt like there was no way for them to get published if you didn't know somebody. So I was like, oh, this would be really cool. Something would be really cool if, we just had some kind of publication or something to celebrate those people. I actually interned at Void whenever I was in college. So that's kind of where I first got exposed to publication. It was a really, really great experience. I learned kind of just so much about design, and shout out Void, yeah. So branding and initial design for RadX kind of began spring of 2019. It was this experience for me. I had this idea in December, but I was hesitant to kind of just jump right in and do it. I was researching what other local publications there are, even, nationwide. It was very overwhelming for me. I felt like because I wasn't already there, because somebody else was doing something even remotely similar, that like, oh, like they're doing such a great job, so why should I even try, and that's something I kind of battled with for a good bit. It took me a while to finally just like, hey, let me just do it, see what happens, you never know. So I kind of started the branding in the spring, but I really started posting and being active on social media, which really we grew from Instagram, just constant outreach to local artists. Hey, can we post your work? Hey, I love your stuff. And so it really created this foundation. Our website launched in spring 2019, and we kind of just started with, phone interviews and writing blog posts. It was really still more digital than a print publication. So everything was going really well, and we were like, hey, why don't we just try to do something in print? We did. It was November of 2019. We were actually doing the interviews. So we had a whole day long shoot featuring or highlighting 3 different artists for the first issue, Inspire. So February 1st, 2020, volume 1 Inspire released. So Inspire was the official launch of the brand. It's 112 of beautiful pages featuring 3 artists, Michelle Calloway, Hootie Shepherd, and Sadiqa Makbel. To celebrate this first issue, we also wanted to have a party. But honestly, so with this issue, it was a really, really just a whole bunch of anxiety for this. So we opened submissions December 6th of 2019. The deadline for submissions was January 6th, 2020. So almost the entire month, we had probably about 5 submissions total. And I was like, how am I going to fill this magazine? There's absolutely no submissions. Everything's falling apart. We'll have to push it back, something. And when I tell you, I was just so worried. It was just such a crazy feeling. And literally all of the submissions for the magazine came the weekend right before the deadline. So I definitely learned that a lot of creatives will wait until the last minute, which no shame, because same here. I should know myself and know that that was from the beginning, but it was just an intense week of straight editing, me and Cody staying up until 2 a.m., laying out everyone's pages, because I had never laid out my own publication before, on top of, running a magazine. I was just trying to make sure we got all the information right, talking with contributors who's never submitted to a publication and know about 300 DPI or 72 DPI, and it was a really good experience. Once we sent it to print, it was honestly the biggest weight off of my shoulders. So not only to get ready for the magazine, but we also decided to throw a launch party for the brand and also for the first issue. So our launch party and the brand happened really February 1st, 2020 was the explosion of everything. It was held at Space 42. And at the time, it was a local art gallery. So it was a old warehouse that they kind of turned into a local gallery. The event was planned in less than a month with a lot of help. I was originally thinking whenever, just put it out there, I was like, maybe 60, maybe 100 people max. Like, I don't think it'll be anything crazy. And really, to make things even more complicated, my brother, who's in his early 30s, he actually had a heart attack 2 weeks before the event, which was supposed to be this really big, just big moment for me. So I was actually out of town for a solid 2 weeks, just in the hospital every day before the event. So I came back the day before to actually, even get the event put together. Even the day of the event, I really had no expectations. I had no idea what to expect. I had been through a roller coaster of emotions. I was emotionally drained. I was mentally drained. So it was just a lot for me. That month of 2020, which, but my team and I were, the day of, we were running around, trying to put everything together so it would be perfect, but printing things last minute, and somehow, a miracle happened, and there was about 1,000 people there in attendance, and we completely sold out of magazines. It was the most unimaginable experience I could have even. I had no expectations or anything, and to have that happen was honestly just a night to remember. I could have not done it without my boyfriend, my friends, my team, my family. It was truly like just a speechless moment for me. So everyone who supported me in my vision, it really, set the standard for, RadX moving forward. And, we did want to have events the rest of the the year, but, with COVID and everything, we couldn't. So a little bit more about the process of the actual magazine. So I kind of broke it down to 3 basic steps, the initial, the planning. We kind of, with each magazine, we determine, okay, what's going to be in the magazine. We plan all the themes for the issues the year before, so it's not during the year. But we plan what's going to be in it, who's going to be in it. Submissions, we open them up. We do a lot of outreach. We start doing the interviewing very early on, and then we also start with the photo shoots as well. So the second part, it's kind of more of a waiting game, still more planning. Start to think about the design, the outline of the magazine. So, like what's going to go where, as far as the major content that we know of. And then, so towards the end, the last chunk is really right before we send to print, and we review all of the submissions. We send out, decisions as well. We start placing the submissions in the magazine, placing, any additional content, set up the marketing material, verifying resolutions. And that's really like, everything else is really slow, and then it just gets crazy right before sending to print. So a little bit more just kind of showing the magazine itself. So far we have released 5 issues. We actually just released our 5th issue on March 6th. So be sure to check it out. Focus is the title of it, but that's the next slide. So the first one was, inspire. The second one was influence. And then we had create. Then we had elevate, and then focus. And then so we also have a website, which I have designed and developed myself, radxmag.com. You can learn more about submissions, find new music, new artists, event coverage, and then obviously purchase your copy. So what's next? So our next issue is going to be called Persevere. So it's the theme, show us your work that you created which embodies perseverance, or work you created to overcome an obstacle. How can art help us achieve our goals in spite of life's challenges? So the deadline is April 9th. So anyone watching, if you're interested, you're welcome to submit. We do accept basically any form of art. So, whether design, whether it's painting, whether it's, drawing, sketching, photography, modeling, sculpture. I mean, the list really goes on. You can definitely connect with us on social media: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, all of the socials. But yeah, so opening it up to any questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much for presenting, Nicole. That was so great to hear the story and journey of the publication and how it went from concept to execution. We did have a couple of questions in the chat. And Anna says, what made you want to start your own magazine? And I know you mentioned that you noticed it was hard to get published in some instances. What other reasons kind of helped solidify your decision to start this magazine?
So I wanted something, for people, for artists, and there was nothing that was just about artists. Everything had maybe one issue dedicated or a section in the publication, but there was nothing just for artists, all about artists, created by artists. It was just, there was nothing there I saw this lack of. So I was like, I have experience in photography, I have experience in design. I mean, I'll find someone who does writing. Finding those other talents to complement, what you don't have is very important. And I was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna try, just see what happens. And here we are, over a year later, and I'm still like, we'll see what happens.
That's amazing. There was another question here as well. Let's see. From Keith, where can they find issues of the magazine?
So currently there are a few issues at Wildcrafters, located in 5 Points. We're still working on getting some distribution to more in the city, but otherwise they are all available on our website, radxmag.com.
Awesome. Let's see here. I've got another one as well. Chad Smith asked, have you had any further difficulties dealing with COVID during this challenging time?
Yes, absolutely. I would say we've definitely tried to do a lot more like online interviews. We don't actually do any more interviews in person. For most of 2020, we were doing a lot of, even, with those featured artists, we were doing in person. We still do like photo shoots, but it's, all masked up, all, socially distanced. And, but now we kind of switched to more, interviewing on Zoom. Even I think last year when we couldn't have our launch parties for each issue, to really celebrate the artists that are in the magazine, we had to figure out a creative way. So we actually were doing like IG live parties. It's still, a constant struggle because we had a small release party for this past issue at Wildcrafters, and there's a small attendance, which we kind of wanted just because of COVID is still a thing. We did request everyone to mask up, and we're still definitely taking precautions. But it's still a challenge, trying to encourage artists to create even with this, volatile time. It's just been so crazy. So yeah, just trying to keep spirits up.
I agree. There's when you see other people doing really cool things, it makes you want to do more. So try to practice your craft a little bit each day, so you don't lose it. And I agree. It's during these times it's kind of tough to feel inspired, but when you see others just going out there and getting it, it makes you it is really energizing, and it kind of fuels that passion again.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Nicole, for joining us in the Morning League today. It was great seeing your work. Any closing thoughts?
Yeah, just for everyone to keep creating, keep going. And if you're ever scared of, making that step, you have an idea, just go for it. Don't wait. Don't wait 6 months like me. Just go for it, because you never know what's going to happen, and there'll never be anything like what you provide. So
Great. Thank you so much. So you want to stick around while we do some closing announcements?
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Cool. And let me switch it over here to the deck. Just wanted to give a quick thank you again, Nicole, so much. And we also want to thank our sponsor, our chapter sponsor, Print Jacks. They're constantly supporting our chapter. And if you like what we do and want to continue to support us, please consider joining. Katya has a great story. When she was a member in 2009, right after she was accepted into the design program, she wanted to grow her network and found new friends in joining the community. So there's a lot of value in joining the AIGA chapter in JAX. Quick heads up, next week we've got our Design Kai event, which is our design challenge, bringing that back. Visit our website, jacksonville.aiga.org, for details. And connect with us on Slack. We're always on there, and if you've got any feedback or suggestions on how to better connect, we're always open to hearing your thoughts, and so we can better engage with the community. But with that, this has been the Morning Leak. I'm Jesse the Bison, your host for today's show. Thank you so much for joining. Please like and subscribe, follow our channel, visit our website, and subscribe to the newsletter. And with that, we'd like to wish everybody a great day, and thank you for joining us.